welcome to BCN News. Leading our news tonight, the National Certificate of Educational Achievement, known as NCEA, is expected to undergo significant changes over a 5-year period. A visiting team from New Zealand's Ministry of Education has been meeting with representatives from the Niue community this week. Following consultations with all New Zealanders last year, the ministerial and professional advisory groups and the Ministry of Education have come up with 7 changes to strengthen NCEA. The 7 changes are to make NCEA more accessible. NCEA fees will be removed, along with the redesign of achievement standards to make NCEA accessible for all. Ensure there is equal status for Matauranga Maori in NCEA. Strengthen literacy and numeracy requirements. Have fewer, larger standards. The review of achievement standards will reduce the standards to 4 to 6 credits, with around 20 credits per subject. The changes also include to simplify NCEA's structure. The ministry will remove the ability to carry over 20 credits from a lower level NCEA and make each qualification. The ministry will introduce a clear guidance on the number of credits that a student should enter each year. Show clearer pathways to further education and employment. The ministry will develop a vocational entrance award for students to directly enter high-level vocational education and training and to build more coherent vocational pathways. NCEA Level 1 will be kept as an optional level.
NCEA needs to be reviewed every 5 years because it's on the New Zealand Qualifications Framework. The review started last year, and what we did last year is we came to Niue last year, as well as engaging with a whole lot of people in New Zealand, and we asked 3 questions. We asked, what do you like about NCEA? What didn't you like about NCEA? And how might we strengthen NCEA? And we heard a whole lot of things. We heard that for some people NCEA doesn't work. They don't get the numeracy and literacy that they need to survive and function in the world. We also heard that a lot of workload for teachers and a lot of assessments, and we heard about young people who pick and choose which credits they'll do, so they miss out on important learning across the curriculum. So we then went to our government and we told the government what we'd heard, and they made a package of 7 changes, and we're here in Niue to help people understand the changes and what it will mean for them. And then also, as we move towards the end of the year, we want to get their feedback on the changes so that we know what design and how to implement those changes would work best for Niueans and for young people sitting the NCEAs.
The visiting team from New Zealand met with the Department of Education, Niue High School principal, teachers, staff and students, parents, as well as the USP director for their feedbacks this week.
They're of course concerned about understanding the changes and making sure that they get it right for your students. We've talked to Charles and the teachers about coming back towards the end of the year and in the years following so that we can help them transition and take them through some workshops and make sure they're well supported to make the changes. They're a little bit concerned about understanding the numeracy and literacy, and we've spent quite a bit of time on that today. Parents also just want to make sure that they understand the changes to support their young people. They're also concerned about understanding when the changes are going to happen so that they get it right for their young people, which is why I'm stressing they don't need to worry right now. The changes will happen progressively and we will be here to support you.
The national budget for the new financial year has been presented by Treasury to Cabinet, with Cabinet meeting today for endorsement. Treasury has confirmed that the next Assembly meeting, scheduled for June 26th next week, will have the budget table for discussions then. The normal recurrent budget is generally between $20 to $24 million. Manager for Niue Power Corporation, Hui Paola, says the Tesla battery for the solar grid is a state-of-the-art, one-of-a-kind in the Pacific and the best of the best. The generators, on the other hand, are far from the same caliber. This was established last week when Niue experienced such bad weather the microgrid developed by PowerSmart had shut down, relying on the generators to take the electricity demand load. At the time, the 2 generators, Paola said, could not withstand the country's demand, which resulted in power rationing. The energy exerted by the battery is sufficient when charged to meet the current demand of excess 800 kilowatts, running excellent, he says. It was already established last week that the existing generators, when relied on following the bad weather, would not withstand Niue's current electricity demand. The answer would simply to get a new generator to go together with the new microgrid system developed by PowerSmart. Paolo reiterated that the decision is out of his control, but that should Niue Power do get new generators, they would need two. The generator sent to get fixed, Paolo informs, is arriving on next month's boat. This was affirmed also by the advisor to the Premier, Wayne Daw. A documentary has been produced outlining guidelines on whale watching in Niue. This is part of the Niue's ocean-wide project, which focuses on efforts to secure a large-scale marine protected area to better manage resources in a sustainable way. Generally, from July to October each year, humpback whales arrive in Niue's waters to nurse their young. It's a major tourist attraction in Niue, as one of only a handful of places in the world where you are allowed to swim with the whales. This video provides guidelines for the general public, tourism operators, fishermen and canoeists on whale watching.
It's not always easy to get people to read guidelines, and as such we decided that it would be a good opportunity to do a short video that would help to explain the importance of whales, why they're here in Niue, why it's such a privilege to be able to interact with them. And then explain what those guidelines mean, the distances that operators can come within when they're taking tourists out, etc. So the documentary essentially covers what that is. And it's not just for raising the awareness of operators on the ocean and tourists who come here to see the whales, but also to give people on shore an appreciation for what's happening out there, and that when boat operators are on the water with tourists with whales, that they have been trained and are following the necessary guidelines.
The last 10 or so years, the development of regulations and guidelines has been put in place, but through years of experience myself in trying to monitor and enforce rules and regulations, a lot of the time people have come back and said, oh, we didn't quite know that, or you have to keep training people, and the awareness needs to continue on. So we decided that perhaps the best way to try and do that was to use some other media format. And so we've decided to, for the first time, to trial putting a video based on the whale watching guidelines and regulations.
Brandon Pasisi says the video also promotes Niue, displaying its pristine environment.
Because the whales come here to calve sometimes, so there's a lot of mothers and calves show up here each season. It's important that the interactions don't overly encroach into their space, because as you'll see from the video, it talks about the amount of energy that's required. The mother has to produce 400 or 500 liters of milk a day to feed the baby, and so while the baby's very young, in the first 2 or 3 weeks of its life, it needs to be undisturbed. And so the regulation provides that those very young, there'll be no in-water interactions with them at all.
Hydrographic officials are on the island to assess Niue's progress in meeting its obligations under international treaties. Stuart Kai from New Zealand's Land Information Department has been meeting with maritime officials this week.
Niue signed up to that convention, so there's a number of things that they need to be doing. So there was a number of recommendations that came from that first visit, so we're here to see how progress is going and what assistance can be provided in getting those all in place. And then also with the Pacific Regional Navigation Initiative, back in July we undertook some hydrographic survey using airplane around the island here, but also out at Beveridge Reef. So we now have a very good data set that we're able to produce and maintain the charts for Niue, and actually produce a brand new chart that will cover Beveridge Reef.
Kai's visit is a hydrographic technical visit and is also in relation to the Pacific Regional Navigational Initiative.
First off, it's there to improve the nautical charts, so the charts that the cargo ship use when it comes in once a month, or the yachts when they come in to anchor off and moor up off Alofi. So improving the quality and the accuracy of those charts, that's the main purpose of the survey. So the charts for that will be produced later on next year, and they'll be made available. So although that data has been collected for that particular purpose, it can also be used for other purposes. So understanding Niue's marine estates, so what is on the seabed, what's the seabed made of, so the data can give you more information that then helps decisions in how do we use and how do we manage our resources of the sea.
And finally, TV Niue's journalist Esther Pavihi had the opportunity to meet New Zealand's Speaker of Parliament, the Honourable Trevor Mallard, and featured in a program produced by the Parliament Office. This was part of the Pacific Media Exchange Program funded by MFAT through Pacific Broadcasting Corporation Limited, in which Pavihi is attached with Radio New Zealand International in Wellington for 2 weeks. She and another journalist from the Cook Islands TV spent the first 2 days of the exchange program working with the press teams at Parliament House. One of the programs they took part in features the Speaker of Parliament updating viewers on what to expect in the Parliament sitting that day, the questions and the bills in the order paper.
They're at Parliament yesterday. What did you think about it, Esther?
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for having us on your program. From the press gallery yesterday, it was a very interesting observation for us. During question and answering time, it was rather loud, not what we're used to in our parliaments. The questions were the questions were very clear, but during the time when the Minister was expected to respond, there was just a whole lot of other robust discussions happening at the same time, so it was quite difficult to hear. Let me just say that that's not how we do our question and answering sessions in Parliament in Niue, but it was definitely an interesting experience yesterday.
Well, I think that, Esther, clearly you've got a good journalism career, but diplomacy might be something that is in your future.
And that's all for BCN News Tonight. Thank you for joining us. Have a good night.